Good evening again, everybody. Happy bank holiday on this Friday evening, and welcome back to the caterhamracer.com Caterham 420R Championship. This is round number 3. It follows the real life, what would have been the original 2020 Caterham UK Championship, or Caterham Championship UK. As of course it obtained national status before the start of the season, which is fantastic, but we're still using the 420R moniker at the moment, and these are the Caterham 420R machines. And if you recognise where we are north of the border in Scotland. We are in Fife at the fantastic, short but very fast Knockhill circuit. Lots of twisting corners and not many overtaking opportunities. A little bit narrow, a little bit tricky, and certainly can produce plenty of action. Now, the majority of these drivers who have raced with Caterham Motorsport will know this circuit the other way around. Ironically, they would have had their first taste of Knockhill in the reverse layout direction, which is licensed in the UK by Motorsport UK to run, and they did that back in 2018 when they were part of the TCI UK race weekend that was taking place on that same meeting. Whereas this time they are running the conventional clockwise direction rather than the anti-clockwise route, which means they'll be heading down towards the opening couple of corners, which is the downhill chicane, and they'll go through the left and right. I'll have a track map in front of me actually in a second, so I can give you the corner name so I know what I'm talking about. But yes, just a quick reminder, Scott Woodward here on commentary. I've got Chris Hutchinson alongside me here once again in the broadcast booth, and also controlling your sight for tonight in terms of the vision and the cameras. Chris, just quickly, first 2 race weekends have been pretty action-packed so far at Silverstone on the international circuit and at Snetterton, as seems to be the case for the most part in these both these championships, the 420Rs and the Academy. Harry Senior does appear to be the man to beat, but he hasn't been totally invincible. He has had some challenges, both in our first broadcast that we did on this page, which was the previous 420R round at Snetterton, and also when he was in the Academy on Monday at Silverstone on the Grand Prix circuit. So he's not invincible, but certainly the results on page would possibly tell a different story to those who don't know the full extent of how things have gone so far.
Yeah, certainly the pressure's been on for him a lot, and you know, he has absorbed that pressure, but he hasn't always been in the lead, and he has certainly been facing some strong challenges from other drivers like David Rowe, Steve Master, and James Murphy more recently. So yeah, this track is tight, twisty, relentless, and I think we're going to see errors. There's also clerk of the court clause judgments to be had around a couple of the corners. If you cut it too fine, which is very easy to do, then it will give you a slowdown penalty, and you have to obey that. So we might see cars pulling to the side certain points during the race as they have to serve that penalty. But yeah, he's not invincible, and again, everyone's gunning at him to try and take that first victory away from him.
Well, tonight could be the night, because even though they say in motorsport you shouldn't read too much into practice, looking at the lap time so far with a minute and a half left of practice to go on my screen, it's Matthew Lewis who put in a great drive in the second Academy race on Monday to come from the back of the grid to 6th position, if my memory serves me right. He was also one of the top drivers last time out in the 420Rs at Snetterton. He has gone to the top yard around this virtual representation of Knockhill on Assetto Corsa. Then they started to find a bit more pace, and by the end of this week they've started to get themselves into 56s and the 55s and that side. I will say one thing is that if this has given us a small indication, possibly Chris, of what qualifying could be like, it could be one heck of a barnstorming session, because the top 8 so far in this practice session is currently separated by less than 0.4 of a second. And I would imagine heading into qualifying, some of these drivers would have been putting in qualifying setup and qualifying amounts of fuel in order to simulate how quick they can get around here. If that's how quick it's possibly going to be in qualifying and how close it's going to be, this could be pretty intriguing. It could leave as much as 8 or 9 drivers that could be with a shout of getting pole position.
Now, one thing we've done on the server is actually we have restricted the drivers from making any setup or fuel changes to the car. The cars are absolutely identical, so they are running exactly the same, and the fuel rate is also fixed. So we've tried to make this as absolutely level as possible. And yeah, so they won't be able to gain an advantage like that. They will only be able to get it by driving, and that's why you can see that the times are so close, given that Matthew Lewis has actually just set a slightly faster time, so he's broken up that sort of string of cars that were really close.
That's fair point, and I thank you for correcting me on that one, because I would have gone down a whole completely different path whilst making myself look sound stupid, which happens all the time. Anyway, but looking at what it was, I mean, just going on that basis, then, I mean, there's still before Matthew Lewis's time and now after it, there's still 8 drivers within just over 7/10 of each other, which means that pace-wise on a fixed setup, there's some very equally matched drivers in these 420R race cars around Knockhill as we move across now from practice into what should be the qualifying session. So there's just the final results on screen for you of practice. Matthew Lewis setting the fastest time of 55.443. Then David Rowe, now in his more familiar 420R livery that he has in that car, 55.787. Then Harry Senior, who's been the man to beat so far, only 3rd fastest, unless he's got something just in reserve to pull out for qualifying in a minute. Paul Fernerhuff has done well, 4th quickest. Steve McMaster in 5th. James Murphy, a former 2-time Caterham champion, 6th quickest. Tom Willis, who was last year's Academy White Group champion, 7th. Then Steve Arnell, Andy Steele and James Fowler rounding out the top 10. And then the rest of the field coming through. One driver we have to introduce into the championship this year, someone who, again, is not unfamiliar with Caterham racing, but is new to this series, and that is Matt Shepherd, who has raced with a couple of the drivers in the field already, and he was racing in 270Rs last year, and his car will be very distinctive, the sort of bright yellow and car with the black stripes on it, as is his real life car, so watch out for him. But the drivers aren't hanging around here. This is not like the Super Bowl shootout when everyone goes out at 30-second intervals. It's eventually like a Formula 1 sort of knockout qualifying session, Chris. Everyone was lining up in the pit lane. As soon as the light went to green, away they went. Although I think 1 or 2 of them are trying to find their own bit of real estate, and so far being a little bit unsuccessful in exploring the limits of the surrounding gravel traps and grassy areas rather than keeping it on the black stuff.
Everyone's trying to get ahead of everyone else, aren't they? Which is kind of understandable. Again, this does actually happen in the real racing as well. Eventually they'll let themselves string out to give themselves a little bit of space and a little bit of space for the guy in front to make mistakes without affecting their lap too much. But we've got a fair few laps to get done. With a lap time of under a minute, they're going to get at least sort of 10 laps, maybe even 11 before this time is out. So hopefully in that time they'll be able to get at least one clear run.
So, look at the time now. It's only a 10-minute session. Unlike how we saw in the Academy qualifying at the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, where drivers are only going to get around about 3 or 4 laps, this is arguably the shortest circuit, which combined both series will visit. So, it means that these drivers will probably get quite a few lap times in. Wouldn't surprise if they get the qualifying laps into double figures in that instance. We're on board with our new boy Matt Shepherd, just making his way through Butchers and into this fantastic part of the circuit, the infamous Arnold Clark chicane. If you get the camera angle right, you used to watch the touring cars fly through there. They'd always be up on 2 wheels and getting airborne through that chicane. You have the short straight down towards Clark, and then you go through this long, it's almost a corner in many cases, but you're flat out through Hislops on the left-hand side, and then you head down towards the tightest one, the slowest corners in the UK, Taylor's Hairpin. It is an uphill exit as you head towards the apex, all the way down through the gears, and then you have to get as good an exit as possible, and getting sideways is not going to help Matt Shepherd at all. He's certainly trying to find the nuances of this 420R Caterham. As you say, it is his first time in the series, and he only had his sim set up a few days ago, so he's been learning pretty much, in many cases, on the fly to get himself up to speed, and that's sort of almost evident a little bit by the fact that his first flying lap was 2.6 seconds off, but again, we can allow that. He did have a bit of a mistake coming out of the final corner. So the first couple of flying laps are coming in, and Matthew Lewis has the fastest time, so he's continuing his time-topping pace that he had in practice, 55.682. Harry Senior is a 10.5 off that. Steve Arnell is currently 3rd quickest, and then Tom Willis 4th from Paul Fernerhuff. There's plenty of cars that haven't set a lap time so far. But in terms of going forwards, I mean, Chris, I know you have experience of this circuit, obviously the other way around, but from what you found of the circuit in either direction that you've driven it, what would you say are the main challenges for drivers who either haven't driven this circuit before, real or sim, and are having to try and learn it? Because it is short, it is quite bumpy, there's lots of elevation changes, but I presume from a driver's point of view there are certain little unique challenges they have to try and face throughout along the way.
Again, it's just the undulations and the ups and downs of this track and the bumps. They all sort of work to unsettle the car. You've got to make use of all the curbs, but equally, what most of the corners do is really want to suck you on into them. You want to carry more speed than actually they'll take. So it's very tempting just to take a little bit more speed out of another corner and brake late, but actually that's not going to gain you any time. So it's really a matter of patience as much as anything. And I think we're going to see that in the racing as well. the guys that are going to do well in this race are going to be the ones that are patient. They know when to make their move, because a spin here is going to be fairly, it's not going to be great for your result, and it's going to be hard to get the time back, especially, there's really only 2 opportunities to overtake, if that. That certainly, you want to look for people not making mistakes, being consistent. They're the ones that are going to rise to the top.
And I think because the pace of many drivers, just to follow on from that, is quite close, making mistakes is going to be the lack of making mistakes is going to be absolutely crucial, because if the times here are as close as they are appearing to be, as they have seemed to have carried over from practice into qualifying, if that then translates over into race pace, we're going to see quite a large pack of 6, 7, 8 cars all in a group together battling over the lead. And it's typical of Caterham racing, as you've experienced time and time again, is that in Caterham racing, particularly on a short circuit like this, if you make one small mistake, you're not going to just lose potentially 1 place. You could lose 2, 3, 4, 5 spots depending on where you are in the shuffle, and it means that you fall out of the freight train, and because all the cars working together will start to push forward, cutting one big hole in the air, it's going to make it more difficult for you to start to close in if you're on your own, because you won't have the benefit of that tow of being in the middle of the pack. So trying to avoid an error at a circuit like this in cars like these is absolutely crucial, because if not, it can really hinder your race going forwards for however long's left, whether you're at half distance or 2/3 or however long you are into it before the flag.
I fully expect to see what we'll call the train of cars be in full effect, as long as people maintain their clean and don't sort of hit each other up the rear. So that as soon as that train forms, if you're pushed to one side of that train, or you fall out of it because of your mistake, then yes, absolutely, who knows when you're going to be able to rejoin. It's complete potluck, and really want to avoid that at all costs.
So those people who possibly might get caught up into that train, it appears to be anyone that's currently in the top 10 in times right now, because the top 9 cars are separated by less than a second, 0.869 to be exact. So the order, with less than 5 minutes in the session to go, it's Matthew Lewis who currently still tops the times with that original first proper flying lap, and as I say that, he's now lowered it by a few hundredths of a second down to 55.616. That puts him 2/10 clear of Harry Senior, the most successful man in this championship, in this series so far, with 4 race wins from 4 races, so he's got a perfect 100% record at the moment. David Rowe is up to 3rd quickest, only half a tenth up on James Murphy in 4th. Steve McMaster 5th quickest, Paul Fernerhuff is 6th, then Tom Willis and Steve Arnell, and then it's Mike Hilton in 9th quickest. The first car, which is outside the sub 1 second group, is Andy Steele in 10th quickest, 11th quickest for Andy Lees, as David Rowe gets a little sideways there. And I think a few cars have been doing some grass tracking through McIntyre's and Leslie's as they come back onto the circuit to try and find some space. 12th quickest is Andy Lees, 13th is Matt Shepherd in his first qualifying session in Assetto Corsa in this league. You've got Alan Curtis in 14th place, Mark Bennett in 15th, and then we've got Jeff Newman in 16th place. The entire field spread by 2.5 seconds, and it does seem as though, if we have got a bit of a split in the field, that possibly that sort of top 8 or 9 drivers, as Fernerhuff improves his time on that lap with a 56.137, at least those finishing within the top 5 at the very least, is, unless barring any dramas, is going to come from likely one of those top 9 cars, provided it stays that close.
Yeah, I think, and it's the same kind of people that we've been seeing all along, isn't it? The same names appear at the top. They always seem to work it out. We are seeing the rear of the field actually catching up and slowly compressing over time. So that'll be interesting, maybe not at this round, but going forward, seeing whether those guys, they're putting in the times offline to go and work out how to do this sort of sim racing business, and it's really starting to come good. So it's really amazing to see these times, and long may it continue.
Key battle might be coming up here, if we are hoping this battle to continue, is the scrap for who's going to join Matthew Lewis on the front row of the grid, because that's looking incredibly close. If we look at how tight it is between 2nd, 3rd and 4th, so Harry Senior is 0.213 away from pole position. He's only another 3/10 or so ahead of James Murphy. We go on board with Harry Senior as he turns his way through Clark Corner. And then Steve McMaster is a further 3/10 back from them. So there's only 6/600ths of a second that separates 2nd down to 4th. And then you've only got David Rowe kind of bridging the gap between at the bottom of the top 5 to the rest of the top 10. As David Rowe is 5th fastest on a time that is, I think, just inside of 55 point, I'm trying to work that out now, 55.85 858, I think that is, by that time. Be possibly
That's pretty good maths. That's 958, but good stab at that one.
I was close. I was close. So I forgot I was looking at 2 rather than 3. So looking at the time left to go, there's only 1 minute and 10 seconds left to go. So if anyone starts at that time, they're only really going to get one more, and provided they don't have any dramas, as I say that, someone kicks up a little bit of dust on the exit of the Arnold Clark chicane. Harry Senior then getting to watch his virtual avatar, so to speak, working away at the wheel through Clark Corner. He's got to hope that the car in front sees him and moves out of the way, which he does. It's good driving from that man. Also, I think somebody else who's weaving from side to side purely to get some heat with the tyres to set themselves up for their fast final flying lap. Bit of a lock up from them as Senior looks for the late apex, exiting the Taylor's hairpin, and that's not going to help with the lap time. He's going to get one more, but whether he was going quick on that lap time or not, we're not going to really know, because of course we don't have the benefit of seeing sectors. Despite that little mishap, he still did a 56.726. It may not have been too bad, but he heads into Duffer Stiffen through Leslie's. Now we're on board with James Murphy, who's just popped up to 3rd fastest now. So James Murphy with a very impressive time to put himself up into 3rd. And then it's 4th fastest for Steve McMaster as someone else is running while it's the same car that was in the way of...
Oh dear. Yeah, that's not so good. So I think that's Chris Welch. He is quite new to this game, and so I guess the awareness wasn't so great. He's just shows what can happen if you're either unaware or things change quick, and so James has now lost the opportunity to set another lap time.
Yeah, I mean, it looks as though at the highest he will start in 3rd. Matthew Lewis has decided that he's done enough work for this session, decided to park it before the end of the session, as the checker flag has already come out. And David Rowe, he was going to go quicker, or at least he was hoping to go quicker on that lap, but sliding sideways out to the Arnold Clark chicane hasn't really helped his bid. Paul Fernerhuff is just passing somebody else that's gone and had a bit of a loop at the Taylor's hairpin. He comes across the line. He is currently 6th on a 56.137. Can he break into the 55s? And the answer is no, he can't, and he will stay on the 3rd row of the grid.
He did just break into the 55, Scott, but yeah, didn't make any improvement on his actual lap time. But yeah, he did.
Oh, he did. Okay. I didn't see it for some reason improve on my screen for some reason, because maybe I wasn't looking. Anyway, either way, yes, he did. Yeah, it is. That's 55.979. Well spotted. So here is the grid then as we go forwards towards the race. We've got about 35 seconds until we transition to the grid session. So Matthew Lewis will start on pole position by just over 0.2 of a second from the man in form, Harry Senior, on the front row alongside him. James Murphy and Steve McMaster will be on row 2 ahead of a 3rd row containing David Rowe and Paul Fernerhuff. Then Tom Willis and Steve Arnell, Mike Hilton and Andy Steele complete the top 10. Then it's 11th place for Tom McEwing, 12th for Andy Lees. Matt Shepherd on his first start will be 13th on the grid alongside Mark Bennett. Then Jeff Newman, Alan Curtis, James Fowler, Chris Welch, and we were hoping, I think we're going to get Trevor Conway as well, but it looks like he didn't set a lap time in that session, which means he will start 19th and at the back of the grid, which means he's got some work to do as well. Trevor Conway, I would hope, if he hasn't already, that he hasn't got it now, he'd have in the future his trusty bright fluorescent yellow livery on that Caterham, which I know his son Alex Conway used.
He's certainly got that. Tonight he was having connection issues, which I think is why he's now not joined the server. Rather than, if you have a bad connection in sim racing, that's the equivalent of having a really dodgy car. So he's taken a step away, but yes, we will see his car and his gaudy livery in a future race.
I don't think it's that bad. I thought his son Alex wore it rather well in the academy when he went on to win the title.
It certainly was quick, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's a championship winning livery, so there you go. So we should mention, of course, that these guys now have got their proper skins for this race, which is, again, we have to say thank you to Ben Obro, who is the man who put together both the Academy and the 420R mods. Massive thank you to him for putting all the skins together and using all the reference pictures everyone sent through, which means that the cars can look pretty much as they should do when we get back racing underway, which will hopefully still be at this point from the beginning of July, all things considered. But looking at the run so far, looking at how close it was in qualifying then, Chris, as we wait for the lights to come up in a few moments' time, this is going to be interesting. A sprint down towards turn 1, you've got Matthew Lewis and Harry Senior alongside each other on the front row. This is going to be a short drag race, but an important one on the run down towards the first corner, because it could possibly decide the order for the next few laps, given that overtaking is so tough around here. Now,
I'm not a betting man, but I would not be taking odds on no accidents happening in turn 1. It's it funnels everyone down really narrow, and it's tricky to get the line right, even on your own. But here come the lights, we'll see. But yeah, I'm not taking that bet.
think anybody does, if he was successful, they might get quite a lot of remuneration in that one. Anyway, here come the lights. Race number 1 of the evening here at Knockhill for the caterhamracer.com 420R series is go. It's a pretty equal launch from the pair of them, but I think possibly from the inside of the front row, it looks as though it possibly has been on the run down towards turn 1. Who's in the lead? I think it's Lewis has got the lead. He gets the whole shot into turn 1. Senior gets second, third place. And I was about to say you were proved wrong, Chris, but as I said that, 2 or 3 cars went spinning. Looks as though Bennett was involved. Also was Steele, Shepherd and Hilton. They've all been in the mix. No, 5 cars. Curtis, Welch, Bennett, Steele and Hilton were all the cars that fell foul at the first few corners at Duffer's Dip and Leslie's before Scotsman's Corner. We wait now to come up through Clark Corner, and it is Lewis who leads the way. Senior in second place, Murphy in third, then it's McMaster, Rowe, Arnell, Willis, Lee, McEwing and Newman. That's the top 10 as they head down towards Taylor's Hairpin, this big braking zone into for the first time. Bit of a lock up there from, looks like Harry Senior as he held on, but this nice little shot as they glide their way through Taylor's Hairpin for the first time. And immediately you can see now on the outside line, Harry Senior is challenging for the lead on the run down towards Duffer's Dip to start lap 2. We're on board with Harry Senior right now. That is Matthew Lewis to the right hand side in the white and red car, but Lewis breaks that a little bit later, hops over the curve into Duffer's Dip and through Leslie's, and somehow just about holds on as he ran over the curve exiting Leslie's. And now as it was once again, this is almost like Silverstone in the Academy once again, because Harry Senior looks in the rearview mirror and thinks, oh no, not James Murphy again. He's back on his tail in third position as they have out of the Arnold Clark chicane and towards Clark's. So the first couple of laps, it seems as though, Chris, you were right to predict there was a bit of incident into turn 1, 5 cars being hit in stride, but for the most part the cars in front in the leading pack fairly clean and trying to get on with it early doors.
Yeah, you could see that train forming as we see James Murphy just going up the inside of Harry. Can he make it stop? He does make it stop, and actually he does make that good place. So great job by James Murphy there. Can he go and chase down Matthew Lewis? Yes, we saw that train, and you can see it here on the screen now. However, a bit further back we were seeing some people sort of get spun out, so you can see that there are now gaps towards the rear, and I think towards the end of this race we're going to have to look out for lapping. I don't think this is going to be over until right at the end of the race.
You can see here now that looks like Harry Senior is not done with his attack on James Murphy, but at the same time he's got to be careful because he's got to look in his rearview mirror and see that both David Rowe in the black and green DPR livery caterer and Steve McMaster in the bright blue car in 5th position are both bearing down on him. The top 5 is Lewis has got a 1.3 second advantage at the front now, which might be starting to reduce if Murphy and Co can almost start to work together. Here's the onboard shot from David Rowe. Here's what he sees as he looks at the grey and red machine of Harry Senior in front of him, battling for third place. The car in the mirror you can see just there, that's Steve McMaster in the blue car. He's looking for 5th position as they turn their way through Taylor's Hairpin. Nice and tidy, clip the apex and now up through the gears. He's into third gear, up through the revs. They start to crest the rise of the pit straight underneath the bridge and up towards Duffer's Dip as the road just falls away. It gets a blind entry as you go into that right hand. It falls away. There's lots of curb on the inside line, but it dips even further through Leslie's. It compresses at the bottom, and then you turn into a relatively flat corner, which is the right hander at Scotsman's Corner, then through Butcher's, and you start the roller coaster ride again up the hill, riding over the curbs, launching over them and getting air as you head through the right hander. Oh, 1 car, 2 cars making contact. I think that was Murphy and Senior. Murphy and Senior both come together by the looks of it. David Rose had a big benefit out of that one. Someone else is off, and that's Murphy. So Senior was the one that lost out in that one. I think there was contact between Murphy and Senior. Senior was the one that lost out first, and then on the exit of Clark Corners, Chris, it looks as though Murphy also lost it too. So Senior has gone back up to third place, ironically. Murphy was down to 5th, but has got back past Steve McMaster. But I have to ask the question, what on earth was going on with all that?
I think there was a car having to serve a slowdown penalty, but they weren't doing it off the main line. I think either that or they had some sort of connection problem, but they were certainly going slowly on the racing line, and it was just too quick for Harry, or Harry came up on him too quick to realise what was going on and just absolutely rammed into the rear of that car. So yeah, it's another case of, that the penalty has to be taken offline, and unfortunately that didn't happen in this case. However, it has shaken up the order, and I'm sure that Harry is now going to be fired up to try and make his way back up through the field.
I think there's one car that's down from the back, but it might be either Mark Bennett or Chris Welch, one of the two, but they're the ones that's struggling at the back of the field, possibly without not that much pace. It's a laps car that was in the middle there that was having the spin in front of the scrap that's going on for second now, because David Rowe is up to P2. Here comes James Murphy diving up the inside of Steve McMaster, who leaves the door open. James says, thank you very much, Steve, and he's up into 4th place. Now, just ahead of them, Harry Senior is looking pretty feisty here to get back past David Rowe for 2nd place. He's looking to the outside line, But Rose having to put that black and green car defensive on the inside on the run in towards Duffer's Dip. Rose defends on the inside, but he'll realise that the undercut may well come into effect so you can pull it around the outside, but he realises that, throws the block into Scotsman's corner and up towards Butcher's. And so far so good at the moment, but Rose coming under increasing pressure here as they flick through the Arnold Clark chicane. You can see that McMaster also charging off them, as is also Tom Willis. That little bit of incident in the last couple of laps certainly helped Tom Willis catch up, but in terms of helping people, look at the gap on the top left screen. You can see for Matthew Lewis, he is absolutely sailing away at the front. The gap is now 4 seconds. He must have been laughing in his rearview mirror when he saw that, Chris.
Absolutely, he'll be just looking to consolidate now, really. I mean, it's a long time, just under 9.5 minutes to concentrate and not make a mistake, and he'll be having to do that as we see the two go side by side. So Senior has actually got a better exit out the bottom hairpin there. He pulls alongside Rowe as they come up the hill. It looks like David's trying to fight back, but I don't think there's going to be any space. He's certainly defending that inside line, so you can see that cut back and go around the outside here, but it's an audacious move, and he has made it stick. So can he get the brakes? No. Yes, he does make it. So well done, David. That's a great move. But you can see how much time it's taken out of them. Crikey, this is all action at the moment, Scott.
It really is. We saw that Senior went right back around the outside and held on to second place after that, because as bold as I have to admire David's guts to try that move, it didn't quite pull off in the end. And what this has also done now is to put Murphy and McMaster and Willis, more importantly, into play here. So it is now a 420R train for second place. It's Senior, Rowe, Murphy, McMaster and Willis. That's the order. Quick shout out to the rest of the top 10. We've got Steve Arnell, who is 7 seconds back in 7th place, and Tom McEwing, Paul Fernehuff and then Jeff Newman. But Harry Senior's, Matthew Lewis's gap, I should say, is now up to incredibly 5.3 seconds. So it really is true that the harder they fight each other, the easier it's becoming now to continue see Matthew Lewis making a break from this pack behind him, as now Harry Senior realises, now I've got into second place and now I've got clean air, I have to start running away, otherwise I'm going to get caught up in the battle. So James Murphy with a bold pass diving up the inside into the right hander at Scotsman, into Butchers, sweeps across the front of David Rose, can't says to his teammate, cheers for that. He might be his team boss in real life, Chris, but I think on track there's no respect for either of them, at least in terms of holding on to a position.
They will be racing absolutely flat out. As you can see, they go diving back at him, and actually James Murphy's gone wide into the gravel. Can he actually stop himself from losing those extra positions? And the answer is no. So he's got shoved out of the train, and there you can see him drop down. David's now got a bit of breathing space, and can he now get back up to Harry?
And Harry, of course, is going to have to do what he can in the clear air that he's got to bring that gap down. He's already put it down from what was 6.3 to, at the moment, 5.9. That's about a lap and a bit. He's taken 4/10 out of him. The only thing is, we are now past the half distance point now, with 7 minutes and 15 seconds left on the clock to go on my screen. So we go back on board with James Murphy on the comeback trail as he watches Steve McMaster get a little out of shape through Duffer's Dip and Leslie's, but he's pushing on regardless. Now just look at the back of Steve McMaster's car, who in turn is having to deal with James's real-life team boss, David Rowe. Now then, Murphy's got a good run off the chicane up towards Clark Corner. Does he dart out to the inside? Not on this occasion. He'll set him out of Clark Corner on the run down towards Taylor's, and of course we know how dynamic these cards are. He goes very wide on the exit after that small mistake, and so James Murphy has lost another spot as a result of that, because Tom Willis comes charging through into 5th position. That seems to be the issue with this race so far, Chris, is that there's no doubt that James Murphy is quick, but he's also rather error prone as well, particularly on a short, sharp circuit like this.
Yeah, and we said that errors were going to cost people time and they're going to cost people the race, and that's certainly what we're seeing right now. It's a perfect example of just that little bit of over-exuberance. You've got to make your move at the right time, and if you choose at the wrong time, you're going to end up sideways with someone for a long time, cost you, and if you get pushed out of the train, then that's it, it's fatal. So we have seen him drop down from what was second early doors, I think, now down to 6th place.
And he's only got 6 minutes left to go to try and make up any of that time, and he immediately goes back onto the attack to try and side his way past Tom Willis to get back into the top 5, but nothing doing on that occasion. Harry Senior is already starting to drop David Rose to the tune of 2 seconds, but even so, at the same time, he's not taking any time out of Matthew Lewis. In fact, the gap that was down to 5.9 at one point has gone back up to 6.3, so Matthew Lewis, pace-wise, is the measure of Harry Senior so far. I don't want to preempt anything, but it's looking like, at the moment, that's the key point in that phrase, that Matthew Lewis is looking good here to possibly, potentially, end the win streak of Harry Senior across the academies of 420Rs, but we've still got 5.5 minutes to go, and as we've seen already in this race, Chris, anything can just about happen. Even when it looks as though that Harry Senior and James Murphy were running in second pretty trouble-free, one small slip can cost them dearly, as up the inside again for, that's a slowdown penalty by the looks of things for Tom Willis. He was a bit too over-eager, I'm guessing by the look of it, through either Duffer's Dip or through Leslie's, but even so, we saw that in the vet there. That is pretty much penalise drivers there and then rather than carry a penalty all through the race. It's a similar system to that in iRacing. You see somebody else struggling at the back of the field with more pace issues. I'm not quite sure exactly who that is, but someone, one of the back markers, sort of taking to the greenery rather than keeping it on the grey stuff. But it's interesting is that these drivers, rather than sort of get the penalty at the end and realise that it might change up the order later, it's a system where it means if you take a penalty, you have to do it safely, but you take it now to get it out of the way and then try and push on to see if you can make up that time later on, so you're not affected by the time we get to the checkered flag.
Yeah, unfortunately Willis did actually give us a prime example of how that works. He drifted out wide out around Duffers and off down the hill in this sort of location, the lap ago. And he did it off the line, but you can see how much time that's cost him. So it's, that little extra couple of tenths, I think he was going side by side with Murphy at the time, but the extra couple of tenths he was trying to gain, he's lost out on big time. So now we're down to 4 minutes, and I'll speak on behalf of Matthew Lewis and I say I bet he won't be appreciating you talking about his win just this early in the race, but I'm also getting excited that we might have a new person on the top step.
Well, let's wait and see. As you say, less than 4 minutes to go. Let's see what happens and how this race plays out. So far, the main battle appears to be right now. The scrap that's going on here between David Rowe and Steve McMaster. Looking on the timing screens as well, seeing that anyone else is pretty close. The next closest battle at the moment is only the scrap between Tom Willis and Steve Arnell, but that's further down the order, and Arnell's starting to close in on Willis. In fact, here they are on the pit straight. So Tom Willis in his regular machine being chased down by Steve Arnell in his almost sort of tessellated sort of yellow car with its sort of abstract grey, red and blue shapes on there as he's chasing down
Tom Willis has gone live.
Wide on the exit. Is that a possible another slowdown penalty? Did he just make a mistake? Either way, Arnell gets bowled, rides over the curb as he goes through Butcher's corner. He's clipped the inside tyre stack as well. That's going to hurt his chances and also bring the likes of Tom McEwing into play. There he is, launching it over the curbs in 8th position. Steve Arnell there, I think, got a little too eager to get past. In fact, Arnell has, I was about to say he got a slowdown penalty. Looked as there, Chris, as though he was a bit too keen to capitalise on the mistake by Willis, and in his eagerness to try and keep up with him, just turned a bit too early into the first part of the chicane, clipped the tyre stack, and that's put him now 3 seconds back behind P6. Yeah,
that tyre stack is absolutely solid. You definitely don't want to hit that. Is McMaster going to make a move? He's not. But he's been getting closer every single lap. We've got back markers again, so they're going to keep an eye out for that. Can McMaster make it onto the podium in these sort of closing stages of this race? He's certainly hungry for it.
Well, David Rowe would also like, I'm sure, a 420R podium if he can get it, just to give the previous result to see who else is on the podium behind them. And McMaster has had one podium already so far this year, and that was at the opening race at Silverstone International Circuit. That was a second place behind Harry Senior, and ironically, who did he beat to second place in that race? The man right in front of him right now, David Rowe, who's now actually got it back. Actually, he got a second place in that second race, and the two of them are going wheel to wheel, almost banging wheels on the run down towards the Taylor's hairpin. McMaster takes the wide line, looking for the undercut because he knows Rowe will have to drift out wide, but he goes right to the inside of the track to cut across and defend the line. There's now 1 minute and 45 left to go on the clock, and here comes McMaster with the drag race down towards Duffer's Dip once again under the bridge. He's got the inside line, and Rowe has to see if he can let him through. He'll try to go around the outside, he'll have to capitulate. He goes round the outside with a bold move, but runs wide over the curb and has to concede. And in a very, very bold sequence of corner, Steve McMaster is up into third position. He's kicked David Rowe off the podium, and I think David Rowe might be having a slowdown, but yes, he has. But he's now dropped back into the clutches of, guess who? James Murphy, who is coming back up to the field. Meanwhile, back at the front, James Murphy, we hardly even talked about him, but Matthew Lewis is heading up towards the hairpin now for, I think, might be maybe the second to last time, because there's 1 minute and 7 left on the clock, and it might not take 10 seconds to get to the line. So unless he slows up a little bit here to ensure it is the last lap that he's running on to, it may well be actually. So 56, 55. So this might be the last lap of the race actually.
It's going to be tight. If he's clever, I think at the end of the next lap he could ease off to make sure that it is the final lap. That was certainly a tactic that can be used. Yeah, like you say, we haven't really spoken about him all the time. He's just been moving away in an imperious form, and his leads up to sort of 9 seconds now. So Harry was unable to put that challenge together, and unfortunately, we didn't see a race for the lead. But I say that it is nice to see someone different in the white and red instead of the grey this week. Well, again, I don't want to speak too soon, but it certainly looks like he could walk it home from here, doesn't it?
All he's got to do is just get it through the final hairpin up towards the start and finish line. That shouldn't be too difficult. Breaks into tail this hairpin. Through he goes, nice and calm. And incredibly, after all the domination of what was over the last 6 races running the caterhamracer.com series across Academy of 420, the streak is broken. It is a victory for Matthew Lewis as he picks up the win. And he will be the first winner in either series since, let's have a look at that, it might have been one of the Academy races, but actually it would have been, I think it possibly could have been Chris Skillicorn back in the second Academy race who picks up a win in either of these series. Harry Senior does get second place, McMaster gets third. James Murphy steals fourth from David Rowe on the last lap. That's pretty incredible to go back up to fourth. Fifth for David Rowe, sixth for Tom Willis, seventh for Steve Arnell, eighth for Tom McEwing, ninth for Paul Fernerhoff, and it will be P10 for Matthew Shepherd. A 10th place finish actually for Matthew Shepherd on his debut in this series in the 420Rs. I have to say on that one, Chris, that is very commendable for his first race in the series, and he only got his sim a few days ago. To get a top 10 finish amongst all the chaos, kudos to him. That's a great drive.
It is a great drive, and actually in offline testing we've actually been seeing some really good times from Matt already, and certainly some good racing skills, so it'll be good to see how he progresses in the next few rounds, but great start with a top 10.
Was indeed, and it's a great start to the evening, I'm sure, for Matthew Lewis. Look at that pole. I'm sure he got the fastest lap as well, and alongside with that, the race victory. He practically led that race mostly from start to finish. So Matthew Lewis becomes the first winner in 6 races amongst both series to pick up a win other than Harry Senior. But Senior does still pick up second place, although be it 9.1 seconds off at the end. Steve McMaster picked up third in the last couple of laps to be the final man on the podium in race 1, ahead of James Murphy, who had quite an eclectic and erratic first race, trying to get used to the undulation changes of Knockhill, and was a little bit over exuberant at times. But 4th place is his reward for his fight back, as he does beat David Rowe on the final lap, who could have got a podium. I'm sure he would have felt he should have got more. Then Tom Willis in 6th, Steve Arnell 7th, then McEwing, Fernerhoff and Shepherd in the top 10. And just quickly before the timer counts down, it's Jeff Newman 11th from Steele, Curtis, Hilton, Fowler, Lees, Welch and Bennett. So a couple of the drivers in the field having one or two, I think, troubles in terms of keeping it on the road and finding their feet in these cars. So now we come to the second race, where the grid is set by the results of race 1, which means that Matthew Lewis gets the chance to start again from pole position. But once again, crucially, Chris, Harry Senior does get to start from the front row once more, and if he can get a better launch into the run into Duffer's Dip for the first time, there is the potential that maybe you get him get the whole shot, get the lead, and create a bit more of a race with Matthew Lewis than he had in race 1. You
get the feeling that might be the best bet for Harry, actually, is that for early corner. But putting that pressure on also means that if you make that mistake into turn 1 and you have to have a slow down early in the race, you can see how many cars you'd have to let go. And we saw that happen to other cars in race 1. So I'm sure there's a balancing act to be had for him. How far do you push? But certainly you'd expect that off the line is his best chance.
So let's just remind you then, as we're waiting for the cars to be counting down onto the grid in a few moments' time. We've got 2 minutes now to get themselves sorted and ready onto the grid. So as you can see it on the screen here, you've got Matthew Lewis, who will start this race on pole position by virtue of his win in race 1. He starts on the inside of row number 1. On the outside of him is the grey and red car of Harry Senior, who finished second in race 1. Then Steve McMaster in the blue car, and the black and orange machine of James Murphy alongside him on row 2. David Rowe and Tom Willis make up the third row from Steve Arnell and Tom McEwing on row 4. Then Paul Fernerhoff and Matt Shepherd. He will be hoping to make some progress through the field, starting a little higher up this time after he finished 10th, and that's where he will start in race number 2. Jeff Newman starts 11th from Andy Steele in 12th. Then it's Alan Curtis and Mike Hilton from James Fowler and Andy Lees. And then Chris Welch and Mark Bennett will be hoping to keep things facing in the right direction this time, starting on the 9th row of the grid. And again, as you said, Chris, sadly, no Trev Conway, having some issues with his car, but things are hopefully sorted out. We'll hopefully see his fluorescent yellow Caterham on track soon. If not for 420Rs next week, then at the very least even for the Academy race next week. So here's the onboard shot. That's the site which the front row men had, looking at the lights, and then the sprint down towards Duffer's Dip. And again, it is another 15 minutes of 420R action. Remember, if you've seen these cars raced here before, it's been on the reverse layouts, but this is the proper traditional layout, which the likes of British touring cars and British GT have used in the past. And now the Caterhams get to tackle it this way for the first time. So, again, reminder of car colours. On the left on pole, Matthew Lewis in the white car with the red stripe. It is the grey car with the red stripe and the red roll cage. That is Harry Senior on row 2 behind him. You've got the blue car of Steve McMaster and the black and orange car of James Murphy, and then row 3 behind them is the black and green car. On the left is David Rowe, and then the grey and fluorescent yellow car, that is Tom Willis in 6th. The red lights are up, and the second 420R race of the evening, as the rest begin to rise, is underway any second now. They will dump the clutch and away they go. Lots of wheels coming from the end. It's a pretty clean start, and again Matthew Lewis gets a good run. See, he almost drives into him at the moment as he run down towards turn 1 for the first time, heading into the first couple of corners. Let's see if they'll get through mostly cleanly. And it's Matthew Lewis who gets the whole shot again, and spinning in the back. It looks like that was possibly Tom Willis. I think Tom Willis went round for 6th position. That's a shame. He's gone round. A couple of cars also hitting stripe as well. Matt Shepherd's up to 8th position, incredibly. And it was Tom Willis that had the spin. He's dumped down to 17th place. Another car that's in the background on the grass as the rest of the field goes streaming through the Arnold Clark chicane. As we wait for them to come up towards Clark Corner, it is Lewis who still leads, but Senior is going with him in the first lap here. So second place, third for McMaster. David Rowe elbows James Murphy out of the way. Come on, get out of it. I'm your team boss. Move out of the way for 4th position. Murphy 5th, and Arnell's back in 6th position. But just like we saw in race 1 at the beginning of it, Chris, the top 5 breaking away early doors, whilst the rest of the drivers around them hit a little bit of strife and were starting to go every which way in the first couple of corners.
Yeah, the chaos that I predicted in race 1, it was there more in effect that time, wasn't it? So they were all trying their luck a little bit more on the lap 1 this time, but we have crucially got no gap between first and second, and I wonder whether they're going to be a bit calmer this time to work together, and whether Harry will be patient and just sort of sit there for a bit just to see whether they can pull that gap to give themselves a little bit of leeway just in case they do get a slowdown or something a little bit further into the race.
Well, I think these drivers who did get a slowdown in race 1, Chris, will certainly have to be careful with the fact that they know exactly what they, to a certain extent, what they can and can't get away with, so they'll be a little more tentative. So those who didn't experience so much in the first race may possibly be a bit more careful as to what the risk could be of them getting a slowdown penalty of any kind as they head back towards Taylor's hairpin. So these two will certainly be on the watch out for it, as Harry Senior just sticks to the rear of Matthew Lewis's car like glue. And here's the onboard shot. And again, like we saw in the first race, once again Senior is on the prowl. He's in the slipstream of Lewis as they come over the crest, under the bridge, and down towards Stafford's Dip for what is now the third lap.
You saw Senior pull to the left there as he was just going into the sort of pit exit to give yourself a nice wide line, but that's also to signal to Matthew that he's not interested in going past him at this stage. He's interested in just racing with him to move away. They've got plenty of time to have their races a bit further into the game, but we do see Matthew make a mistake, and that still might make Harry a bit more interested again. But I think it does look like he looks like he's being patient at the moment.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It might well do. And the interesting point is that, of course, in that sort of situation, if he really was that worried about Senior heading to turn 1, he would have, as you said, pulled across to the inside line. But because he took his normal racing line, he wasn't too worried. He should be now heading to the Taylor's hairpin. As now we see Senior trying to get the undercut here, but Lewis neatly parks the car on the apex and blocks any move. It might give Steve McMaster an invitation to start to close in if these two don't start to benefit from inadvertently working together with each other down the straight.
And that's exactly what we'll be going through. That's exactly what will be going through Harry Senior's mind is, I gave you that chance, but you're still making mistakes, and now you're costing us time. So I'll only do that so long before I do let you go. I try again to go past.
Yeah, no, I can't disagree with that. Senior at one point will think, right, how many more times do I allow you to get away with making a mistake before I pounce? He's got to get to the point, particularly if it's this close in the closing stages, where Senior, in many cases, may possibly feel like he wants to throw caution to the wind at the right moment and dive up the inside or even the outside line to steal the lead back again as they come out of Clark's curve. So, again, the gap is that 0.3 of a second, but they pulled out nearly 2 seconds, or just over 2 seconds now, on Steve McMaster back in third place. David Rowe is a further 1.7 seconds back as he's in his own private battle with James Murphy. So, again, that nice tighter line into the hairpin. And likewise here, you can see David Rowe being defensive as he heads through the last corner onto the pit straight once more. There's James Murphy keeping in the slipstream in 5th. Now, interesting last time by, Matthew Lewis on the last lap set the fastest lap of the race, and it was about 2/10 quicker than Harry Senior, but he hasn't been able to shake him off too far. The gap is still about 6/10 of a second now, so a tiny gap developing within the top two here, but Senior will try and keep close as much as he can, but we have to look back to race 1 where we thought with the clear air that Senior might start to catch him up, and he might well do now as he runs wide on the exit of the Arnold Clark chicane, and that 6/10 of a second gap, as I was going to get onto the fact that we didn't have the ultimate race pace when he was in clear air, but if he keeps on making his mistakes, Lewis could be a sitting duck if he keeps up at this rate.
Yeah, and we've got back markers just about to come into play as well. So with mistakes and a little bit of sort of slower lap times, already these guys are coming up to lap. So I wonder whether Chris Welch here will have a bit of awareness and let them go. It does look like he's pulled to the inside of the track. Hopefully he's seen them both and he can let them go, which they do keep on their merry way.
And ironically, Chris was the one that got caught up with both of those leading back pairs that got caught up in incidents when they were trying to lap it. I think it was, first of all, it was Harry Senior, and then the second one, I think it was
James Murphy.
That was in qualifying. That was earlier on in qualifying. So Chris is still finding his feet, so he's still trying to get himself up there. But at least it was good driving on that part. So well done for Chris for keeping out of the way. Now, what's interesting now here is that we see the scrap still going on between David Rowe and James Murphy, is that Matthew Lewis is starting to get that gap back up again to 0.8 of a second, 0.9, and it was like it was in race 1 where, as I said, I was briefly mentioned just now, Harry Senior in clear air wasn't able to keep the same pace as Matthew Lewis because the gap got down to 5.9, but then when it was due to getting back around back markers or so, wasn't really able to match the pace too much. As we continue to watch now, James Murphy harassing the rear end of David Rowe's Caterham through Taylor's hairpin. He can try and pull alongside if he can. If he's got the grip on the exit, he's ever so slightly edging towards it, but has to duck back into the slipstream. So as Lewis tries to extend the gap now to Senior, and it has done so for over a second here, this is the main fight. And this should be interesting because while in many cases James is effectively one of David's drivers, there's no love lost between these two in the virtual world, is there?
Oh, absolutely not. No, they absolutely want to beat each other. They want the stories to go back and tell the workshop when that all becomes unlocked. James wants to be able to beat Dave for sure. I think what Matthew seems to be doing to Harry is kind of what Harry's been doing to everyone else. He's just got that little bit of extra space, and as soon as he gets out into that lead, and I'm guessing once he's tidied up some of the mistakes that we saw early doors, he's just pulling that gap and is relentless with it. So yeah, Harry is now dropped back to over a second, so it does look again like Matthew's got a good safety margin for him going into the second half of this race.
Let's wait and see what the rest of the race goes into. As you say, we are coming up towards the end of the first half of the race. It's gone past the 8.5 minute mark in terms of time remaining, and we're getting towards half distance very shortly. Come across the line, and as you say, the gap is now up to 1.2 seconds, now 1.3, 1.4 between Matthew Lewis and Harry Senior. It does seem as though in that clearer air, he's got that slightly higher advantage. Now that is Steve McMaster. He must have had a slowdown penalty of some kind because he was up in third place. He's now down to fifth, so a mistake there from Steve McMaster has promoted David Rowe into a potential podium place. There's still half the race to go to signal that out, but either way, David Rowe is now going to try and hold off James Murphy as best he can, but James will know that a podium's up in there too. That small tail slide just shows Chris that, again, yes, by all means, James is one of the faster guys out there. He just needs to control his enthusiasm just a little bit more in order to be a bit more consistent, because we saw the great pace he had in the Caterham Academy race when he was right on the back of Harry Senior for the most part, but it was just the small little mistakes he kept on making that just cost him the ultimate results that he wanted. If he's able just to iron those out over the next couple of rounds, the next couple of meetings, there's every chance he could win a race, just if he can keep the car on the road and just make sure that he keeps it nice and smooth and consistent rather than running off the track every now and again.
You'll often hear team owners saying we can teach people not to crash, but we can't necessarily teach them to be quick. And I guess that's the stage we're at to with Murphy at the moment. He's certainly got the speed, he just needs to learn to control it and maybe control some of that adrenaline along the way.
Doing okay at this stage at the moment, just keeping David Rowe within his sights, and the gap between them is less than 0.6 of a second, so he's not letting him get away too far, and he's trying to use the advantage of the toe on the run down towards these longer straights through the long left-hander of Hislop's down towards Taylor's, and then this run up the hill towards Duffus Dip. And he's got the gap by now by another 10th through that corner alone, so up through the gears in that sequential Sadeb gearbox in the Caterham 420R. It's a 5-speed sequential car. The engine, this is a 2-litre Duratec as well. And as they head into Duffus Dip and through Leslie's right at the bottom of the compression at the hill, he's just keeping on his tail, just keeping just almost underneath the roll cage of David Rowe's car on the back end. So the big DPR logo emblazoned on the rear end of this 420R. Make their way down the short straight toward Clark's corner once again, and really closes back up under braking, but again just taking a little bit too much speed and sliding sideways once again. So James Murphy, I can't fault his pace, but just to get maybe a little bit impatient behind his team boss possibly, because that's about the third mistake I've seen those many laps from James, whether big or small. He's getting a bit edgy out there. Perfect
example of what I was saying at the beginning and during qualifying, that if you try and be the last of the late breakers, then it may gain you a tiny bit on the way in, but you just lose it all on the way out. And that was brilliantly illustrated there by James. So thank you very much for making that point for me.
James Murphy proving Chris Hutchison wrong one small slide at a time. Anyway, moving forward to the race with 5.25 minutes to go. And Matthew Lewis's gap is now almost 2 seconds at the front to Harry Senior. So at the moment, he seems to be on course, but it's not done just yet. As that's not going to help with someone running wide on the exit as both the first few front runners come through. That's actually in front of the race leaders, so that's a few of the back markers getting around each other. That looks to be, I think that's Curtis, McEwing and Newman are having their own private battle for 14th, 15th and 16th place. And what this is now going to do, it's really going to hinder Matthew Lewis. But what it might also do, Chris, is start to give an opportunity to Harry Senior, because he will see the traffic and he'll start to see how Matthew Lewis deals with it. And it might possibly give him a chance to set him up. But at the same time, it could also hinder Harry and see him losing more time. So the balance here of choosing speed over traffic management is going to be really crucial for these two over the next few moments and the next few corners. Yeah,
you can absolutely bet your life that Harry is looking forward to this causing Matthew problems, but equally he's got to get through them. So Matthew has got past one of them, he's got one more to go. But again, this is a dangerous situation for a race leader. You're the first person to start coming through, and the other guys, they're having their own battles. They don't necessarily know you're coming, although it looks like he's nicely pulled to the inside. So great job by the back marker there.
And there was one point before he got past those two most recent back markers where he wasn't that far behind. He got the gap back down by another half a second. That's just how much time that incredibly just past one back marker he could have lost. And now it's Harry Senior's turn to find the difficulties to get past what looks to be. I think it's both Alan Curtis and Tom McEwing he's trying to get past here. So first of all, it's going to be Curtis who's holding him up a little bit here, trying to get a small toe up the hill to get a little bit of extra couple of seconds. He now pulls out to the inside line to make the move, and Curtis likely obliges. But it's a difficult situation in some cases for these back markers, because yes, they have to get out of the way and respect the blue flags, but at the same time they're fighting their own battles. Alan Curtis is in a fight right now with Tom McEwing over 14th place, so he's got to be careful here, as I think he's even had a slowdown penalty in the background by the looks of it, or some kind of a mistake. But the back markers, they are in their own battles, but at the same time have to respect the cars in front of them, as that was very close between what was their third and fourth position there between David Rowe and James Murphy, and they've kept on. They were very close between each other, but they're going to come out of Clark Corner up towards these back markers now. It's their turn to get through them, and Rowe now might find himself under attack for Murphy if he's not careful. There's only less than 3 minutes to go here. I sense that James Murphy, for the first time in a while in this race, Chris, is going to have his best opportunity to steal away a podium place once again from David, who'll be desperate to get it after missing out on it in race one.
And we're also seeing Arnell, the relentless Arnell, coming up from behind. Can he make hay while those back markers are in play? Here he is coming up to the line now. It looks like the gap might be a bit too much, but nevertheless, yeah, Rowe's actually through the first back marker. So can Murphy keep this battle going and get past quickly? He's certainly diving down the inside there. It's made it stick, so great. This battle can continue to the end now.
Good driving from James to find the gap, but also again good driving by the back markers to allow them space to squeeze through. So well done to those guys being lapped at the moment. That's good clean driving from all of them, and respectful for allowing the leaders through. So just under 2.25 minutes left in this second caterhamracer.com Caterham 420R series. Another back marker on the grass and sliding sideways. That I think possibly is Alan Curtis. He noticed the tyres, but no, that was a Jeff Newman. I correct myself on that one. Jeff Newman had the incident there in front of the leaders. They're hairpin, and looking at what's happened on that sequence right there. There's the visible gap. James Murphy lost more time with the back markers than David Rowe did, and that will certainly give the DPR team manager a lot more comfort, shall we say, at this point in the race, with about 1 minute and 40 seconds left to go. Meanwhile, quickly looking back at the front, Senior is not dealing with the back markers as well as Lewis is. So whether that we had some kind of a slowdown penalty, because he's now back, he's away from the back of Lewis's car to the tune of over 4 seconds. So Harry Senior not quite favouring Knockhill as one of his favourite circuits in this series, but nonetheless he's still got the pace on everyone else to be a substantial threat. And if they were even scoring points in the championship, I'm guessing that 2 second places wouldn't necessarily, if we were counting points, damage his hypothetical points tally too much, because it would be the best result so far for the most part of everyone else. It would be 4 wins and 2 second places. That to the start of the season is actually pretty impressive. If it was the real 420Rs, I think, to be fair, because he would be rather runaway championship leader Alan Gordon Sawyer, I think, in that case.
Absolutely. I mean, he is not going to turn down a second place. Absolutely, he'll take that one. Still, a strong performance, but it is good to see that he can be challenged out there. the rest of the race does seem to have sort of rather spread out. So Murphy has dropped back now from Rowe. I wonder whether he has settled in for that. The back markers, like you said, David Rowe just made a better job of getting through. Well, in fact, that's not necessarily fair. You can catch a back marker in the wrong place, and that will automatically cost you time. There's just nothing you can do. If you're catching up towards this chicane, there's no way through. So I think that's just how it kind of the run of the way of the land for it that time through. This is probably the closest we've got on battle at the moment, with McMaster trying to catch up with Arnell, but it looks like that's also out of reach.
Yeah, looks to be. There's also a good scrap going on, I think, at the bottom of the top 10 between Shepherd, Hilton and Fowler.
This is the last lap.
2 spots, as you're right, we do go on to the last lap of the race now. And Matthew Lewis heads across the line and ended up as dip. And again, not for the ones who've not wanted to look at him, but really because all the action's been behind him. We haven't really seen too much of him in many cases, but Matthew Lewis has done just about everything he needs to in this race to hold station at the front of the field, and consistently has lapped at least a couple of tenths per lap quicker than Harry Senior. Heads over the Arnold Clark chicane on the short straight towards Clark's. He's got less than half a lap to go now, and into the right hand. And if you'd gone on pure form, if you told someone that Harry Senior was going to win across the Caterham 420R the next 6 races, if you then said that his win streak would then be broken on that, we might not have believed them. But Matthew Lewis has proved all the doubters wrong, if he had any. Into the right hand at the hairpin for the last time. It's not a bad way to go Caterham Racing online, as he goes up to the checkered flag. And he said, well, anything you can do, Harry, I can do just as well. Up to the checkered flag comes Matthew Lewis. It is a double in the 420Rs for Matthew Lewis at Knockhill. I was about to say Hockenheim for some reason, but Knockhill, who wins here in Scotland. Great driving for Matthew Lewis all night. Harry Senior crosses the line, I think, just over 6 seconds away in the lead. Third place does go to David Rowe. He'll love that after missing out in race 1. It's James Murphy who gets another 4th place, 5th place for Steve Arnell, 6th for Steve McMaster. It's a side-by-side battle. It's between a couple of cars there for 7th. I think it's going to be Paul Fernerhuff who will get 7th. James Fowler gets 8th. Matt Shepherd gets 9th. Again, another top 10 finish for Matt in his first night of racing in the Caterhams on Assetto Corsa. And 10th place will go to, although it was going to be Matt Shepherd in 9th, but it's now Mike Hilton in 9th place. That's changed. That's now, I think, in the background, just coming out of the hairpin. So up towards the line comes Fowler. He will come through and finish the race in 9th. And on the run to the line, Hilton does steal 9th place. So just as they were coming across it, and also in 11th, just behind him is Andy Steele. So Hilton gets 9th. Shepherd loses 9th on the last lap to finish 10th. Steele 11th, and then Mark Bennett 12th, and then Andy Lees, Alan Curtis, Tom McEwing, and Jeff Newman. And the only cars we didn't get, unfortunately, were Chris Welch, who was been in the pits for quite a while, and we lost Tom Willis, sadly. He was not a factor after spitting out on the first lap. So an incredible night of racing once again for the Caterhams. I think the last couple of cars just coming through, if they were lapped to finish the race, I guess, if not coming to the pit lane. But it just shows, Chris, that in the right circumstances, on the right track, there is at least one driver who can match Harry Senior and pace. And tonight, it was Matthew Lewis. He was certainly pretty quick at Snetterton last time by, and was one of the men that gave a little bit of hassle to Harry Senior at one point, but he's proven on the 420R he can be at least the equal to Harry Senior, and he can race wheel to wheel and beat him on track fair and square. So that could be interesting as we go forward to the next few rounds. Yeah,
congratulations to Matt Lewis there, taking that. We've seen this pace from him in earlier rounds, but he has had some accidents and some spins and been taken out a couple of times, so that's why he hasn't necessarily figured right up there. But he's definitely been on the podium already.
So I don't know if there's going to be anyone around for driver interviews, if at all. But I don't know if Chris wants to try and drag anyone in to have a chat. Whilst we wait for that, let's confirm the race results from race number 2 then. So it's the same top 2 as race 1. Matthew Lewis picks up the win, this time by not quite as high a margin. 6.2 seconds is still pretty substantial over Harry Senior in 2nd place. David Rowe picks up a highly coveted 3rd place after he had lots of scraps in race 1, managed to get it ahead of James Murphy in 4th. Steve Arnell is 5th and Steve McMaster in 6th position. Paul Fernerhuff in 7th, James Fowler in 8th, and it's Mike Hilton in 9th place. And Matt Shepherd, who was in course for 9th, just lost it in the last few corners on the last lap, but still another solid top 10 on his debut in Assetto Corsa tonight. Andy Steele gets 11th, Mark Bennett gets 12th, then Andy Lees, Alan Curtis, Tom McEwing, Jeff Newman, Chris Welch and Tom Willis. And that's the 18 cars that were here. Well, Chris Welch, unfortunately, didn't complete as many laps as anyone else did. He was in the pit for quite a while. As we said, Tom Willis was the sole DNF.
I have invited David Rowe in. I'm not sure if you can hear us, David.
I can hear you.
Excellent.
Excellent.
So, what a race, David.
Wow, that was pretty frantic. Well, race 1 was frantic, and race 2 was equally frantic. Me and James tried to work together, but it doesn't quite have the same effect on the sim as it does in real life. So we were kind of.
I think the main question has to be, Dave, is that are you pleased that you've now got the bragging rights over him at least going to the next round? Because I'm sure between that battle, one thing that was at stake wasn't just the podium, but also the bragging rights. I guess at least when we go back to racing, saying that you were at least quicker than him on the sim. Was that something in your mind as well, thinking you've managed to put one over him?
No, I wasn't thinking that at all. Actually, I was just trying not to crash.
It probably should be now. You go back to the workshop and say, yeah, well, you might have got 2 championships, but I'm the team boss and I was quicker than you, so deal with it. So at least you could go along that line. But either way, you've got now Zandvoort coming up. Well, you've got Anglesey coming up next in the academy, and then later this time next week you've got Zandvoort. How do you feel about your chances in either of those races?
So Anglesey, I haven't got a clue where the track goes, so I need to probably start learning that. Zandvoort, I am a lot more confident at, so I'm looking forward to that.
Good stuff. Well, good racing all tonight. There was a top 5 and a 3rd place, well deserved, and go and enjoy it. And you can go and gloat to James now. You managed to pick up a podium and he didn't. So well done, and we'll see you next time.
Let's see whether we can get Matthew Lewis. He's not showing having voice at the moment, but let's see whether we can get him. So, Matthew, I don't know if you can hear us in the commentary booth. Are you able to talk to us? I don't think we've got Matt. Oh, here we go.
Oh, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, congratulations, Matt. Scott, I think, just wants to ask you a few questions, so well done in your race.
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. A fantastic performance all night. You've broken the Harry Senior win streak. How does that feel?
Yeah, pretty good. Had a good run tonight. Struggled a bit on Monday with the academies. I don't think I quite clicked with them as well I have done with these 420s, especially around Knockhill, a great track. Quite nimble, quite hard to race, quite hard to overtake. So qualifying was really important. So made sure I get on pole, and then especially in that second race, Harry really pressured me the first few laps. Didn't manage to get into a bit of a rhythm, but after a few laps, got a bit of a gap and managed to do a good job, I think.
What do you think gave you the edge tonight? Because up to this point, Harry's been the informed driver. Do you think it was just you seemed to gel with the car and track combo better, or was it just? Do you think practice went better for you, or just better management through the traffic? What do you think gave you the edge over Senior and Harry in terms of pace tonight, do you reckon?
I don't know, really. Like I said, I think my driving style suits these cars a little bit better than the academies. I've probably done a little bit more with these cars. I've done a little bit of practicing this week on this track, but not overly, and just did about an hour's practice before the race tonight, and managed to knock my times down by about 3-4 tenths. So I think the amount of laps I did kind of towards near where the race started kind of paid dividend, really.
Yeah, good stuff. Practice does make perfect, as the saying says. And just quickly, also, we've got next week, we've obviously got the Academy, where you've got Anglesey, where you said obviously you prefer the 420Rs, it seems, compared to the Academies, but you've got Anglesey next week, and I guess for you, more importantly, with the 420Rs, Zandvoort coming up as well. How are you rating your chances in both of those circuits? Are you looking forward to either of those?
Well, I don't know, really. I've driven around Anglesey in real life, but I haven't done it in the game yet. And then the other way around with Zandvoort, so I'll have to see, really.
Good stuff. Well, congratulations on being the first winner in 6 races other than Harry Senior. So it's good to see someone else taking the challenge to him, and fingers crossed you can do it again at either Anglesey, if not at Zandvoort. So well done, go and enjoy it, and we'll see you next week.
Right, cheers, boys. Bye.
Great stuff. I'm not sure if we've got anyone else that's around, or if you want us to leave it there. I think
we'll call it there for now, Scott.
Good stuff. Excellent. Well, let's just quickly give you, before we sign off, quick updates to where we are then. So we have now passed 3 rounds each in both the caterhamracer.com Caterham Academy and the Caterham 420R series. Next week we head on to our 4th weekends of action, or 4th meetings of action, shall we say. So firstly, on Monday, be sure to tune in at the same time once again, 8:30, and that will be at Anglesey, the fantastic virtual representation of one of the most beautiful and picturesque circuits in the country. It's a pain to get to, but once you're there, you really do appreciate it, and they'll be on... we decided yet, is it coastal, or are we on the international one this time?
We're on the international.
Brilliant. Full-length circuit. Good to see. Some long straights to add to the action. So that's going to be, once again, 11th of May on Monday at 8:30. Be sure to tune in on the Facebook page if you are already right now, caterhamracer.com. Be sure if you hit the like button, but also if you hit the notifications to all, because you should get a notification in your inbox as to when that goes on. Likewise, you can also watch the action when it gets uploaded back in full on YouTube. So if you go to the caterhamracer.com, is it just caterhamracer.com on YouTube, Chris?
If you search for caterhamracer.com on YouTube, yeah, it'll come up as a channel, yeah.
There we go. And then if you subscribe to that, and also if you hit the bell icon, because that'll mean that you get notified on YouTube whenever any of these full broadcasts get back re-uploaded in full in all their glory to watch back whenever you like. So Anglesey on Monday, 11th of May at 8:30, and again on the same week on Friday, this time next week at 8:30, will be the next rounds of the caterhamracer.com Caterham 420R series at Zandvoort in Holland. Now, I'm not sure if it'll be on the original circuit. I know that at least I can give you some information here, for the Fun Cup race that they've got, because there's a Fun Cup E-Series going on, I know that somebody is in the process of converting the R Factor 2, I'm not sure if I should say this out loud, but there is a version of the Grand Prix circuit that's currently being sorted out, shall we say, for their series. So whether or not that's going to be around or not, whether it's going to be available, I've absolutely no idea. If not, I guess we'll have to stick with the original version of Zandvoort pre-Grand Prix modifications. But that'll be on Friday, so be sure to check that one out as well. Final thoughts on tonight, Chris. As we say, we keep on saying it, but it's nice to see someone other than Harry Senior, all due respect to him, winning a race. And not only that, but getting a double at the same time. And Matthew Lewis, possibly, if he carries on the form to Zandvoort onwards, could be again one of the main challenges, as he was at Snetterton, to take the fight to Harry once we get onto these longer tracks once again, like Zandvoort and like Truxton coming up. Yeah,
absolutely. Why not? I mean, we're not fully halfway through the season, so there's lots of time to sort of make that ground back up. And there's some great tracks coming up, a little bit more sort of racy, a few more opportunities. Tonight it was more about mistakes than for the midfield specifically. They've got a lot to concentrate on with cars in front, behind, spinning, and all those kind of things. So bit more spread out next time. We've got a bit more room to play with, and so look forward to more battles of the same kind of ilk. Could be great.
Yeah, as the saying goes, there'll be plenty of room for all of the activities, I think, on track, particularly in many cases. So, from myself, Scott Woodward, and of course, Chris Hutchinson, big thank you to Chris and, of course, and everyone who's been taking part in this for getting it all set up and running it as per usual. And as we say, Monday at 8:30, back on this Facebook page for live coverage of the Academy race from Anglesey, and then on the same page of this time next week on the Friday, 8:30, for the next rounds of the 420R series at Zandvoort. But for myself, Scott, and Chris, and everyone in the series, thanks for watching. Take care. Have a fantastic rest of the week, rest of your Bank Holiday Friday, and the rest of the weekend. And we will see you next week on Monday. Bye for now.
Goodbye.